Institute for this new event of the Beyond Words Festival. Today's event is entitled Biographics, and we are delighted to host online Paul Gravett, Lionel Richerand, and Jan Novák. Unfortunately, the fourth participant of this event was supposed to be Kate Evans, but she couldn't make it, so we will excuse her. Jan Novák is a leading Czech writer and documentary maker. His novel, So Far So Good, was the Magnesia Literary Awards Book of the Year in 2005. And in 2020, he published a controversial literary biography entitled Kundera, His Czech Life and Times. His latest publication, Zatopek, is his debut work in the field of graphic novels, and it was published in the UK by Self-Made Hero. Lionel Richerand is a French artist and animator. He studied at the École Normale Supérieure des Arts Décoratifs, specializing in illustration and directing animated films. In 2007, he published Petit Conte Léguminesque and later directed The Fear of the Wolf. He is the illustrator of Freud and Freud, published in the UK by Self-Made Hero. And Paul Gravett is a writer, a critic, and a curator and a publisher who has been working in the comics industry since 1981. He's the author of many books about comics and was the general editor of 1001 Comics You Must Read Before You Die. He has curated numerous exhibitions of comics, notably Comics Unmasked, Art and Anarchy in the UK at the British Library with John Harris Dunning. And he's currently writing a new study about Tove Jansson and curating the largest exhibition yet of Posey Simmon's work, opening in August at the Cartoon Museum in Basel, Switzerland. And now, Paul, over to you. Over to you, Paul. Do you hear us? So maybe, Lionel, do you hear us? Or,
Yes.
Again? Yes, do you hear us? Maybe we have a problem with Paul.
Okay.
So maybe we can start by asking you to present this book, Freud and Freud. What is the origin of the book, and how yes, what is the source of this book?
Okay. It's my my first collaboration with Pierre Péju, who is a famous novelist, and I have read a novel of Pierre who really impressed me, and I had the first occasion to work with him, and I don't know anything about Horace Frink, but I am really I really appreciate his style, and it was a very interesting occasion to mix the literary aspect and my graphism on this very the history of psychoanalysis, and to try to match the in between the dreams and historical part.
So let me ask you. I'm very curious. It's always something I was wondering. How do you work with somebody on a same work of art? So did Pierre Péju come to you with the idea of with the scenario with the and
No, it starts very early with just a simple plot. He discovers the famous unknown character of Horace Frink in a short text of Jacobsen, the patient of Freud. And he starts writing the novel exactly in the same at the same time where he contacted me. So I have no structure, and we start together at the same step, and we have no idea to organize the graphic novel and the novel. So at first it was really tricky but really interesting to manage all the information, and because it's with story or text, you can change very quickly to different character, and you can jump in a time. But in graphic novel, it's not the same the same way. You need to you need to be more more it's completely different. You manage double page by double page, and it's not the same way. So we passed our maybe 2 years to find the shortcuts, to find what is the part we choose for the text, and what is the material I use for make some key image to have the most and my focus was to have very the style of Pierre, because I love very much his novels and his text, and we try to make a very singular aspect. And in fact, I think it's really interesting because you can read the novel and you can read the graphic novel, and it's two projects. It's very similar but completely different.
Indeed. I think Paul is back with us, and Kern hear us now.
I can. So I didn't know what happened. I was down a rabbit hole somewhere. Yes.
No worries. Just that you're back with us. So I leave it to you now. You will do a much better job than I will do.
Yes. And I'm sorry to not introduce things properly either. But yes, thank you. So this is an unusual process, though, it seems to me, for a graphic novel to develop in parallel with a non-graphic novel. And as you were just discussing, and the differences between the two being created together means that creates an interesting synergy between the two formats. And Pierre Péju, you're the writer. Was he new to graphic novels? Was this the first time he'd developed them?
Yeah, it's new for him, but there is one adaptation before, but he is not involved on it.
Right.
So it's really interesting to have some discussion with Pierre, and he make a rewriting. It's not the same text. He need to choose the right word, and not too long, or he make a long story short for each case, each part,
yes,
each
yes.
image key,
yeah.
And we try to be more straight and elliptic, and to have the in 2 pages the same emotion, the same feeling. He passed 10 pages to express the same situation in the novel.
Exactly, and this just not. We are going to come to you, Jan, a little bit later. But there's a parallel here because of your background, Jan, as a novelist, and now you've made your first original graphic novel with Zatopek, and then you've gone on to adapt your novel So Far So Good from a novel into a graphic novel. So we have this interesting connection between the two of you, that you are both working in the worlds of comics, if you like, and prose fiction, prose narrative anyway, and working between the two. And that's an interesting situation. I think that there's a connection there. I wanted to also we have got a PDF, haven't we, Lionel, which shows some background of some of your research material and how you arrived at particularly the way the characters are drawn, which I think would be a very nice thing for people to see.
Yeah, we can see the slideshow if you please.
What you've been doing. I think everyone knows what Freud looks like. I mean, Freud must have been cartooned many times. I mean, he's
yes, but in fact, we start the book with the first and unique travel of Freud in United States.
Yes.
And because he
wants to conquer America, doesn't he?
Yes. And he was he had an invitation of the Clark University, and I read the 5 lessons on the psychoanalysis, and in fact I discovered that it's a kind of Reader Digest of the psychoanalysis method.
It's kind of simplified to sort of sell psychoanalysis.
Yes, for the American, because Freud, it is the old Europe open minding. It's not. It's a 90s culture, and there is a kind of very a confrontation between the young America with and the old European aspect. So if you
old world, new world tension
in this 2 page, it's you can see the complete photography we can find of the Horace Frink portraits. I have so there is one with the yellow one is it looks very like a Gatsby. He was very chic, and during the cure with Freud, he was 45 pounds less, and he joked with this situation, and he had sent a letter to Freud, and with the two photography.
Before and after psychoanalysis.
Yes. And you can see what psychoanalysis make to me with these two different photography. And I use the portrait of Freud to have the right approach for the physical aspect, because we start with a Jung Freud in 1909 during the trip in USA, and after he met Frink during the 21 year. So it's not the same Freud, and I try to fix and simplify the aspect, and for the readers, he can recognize very easily the two aspects of Freud.
Yeah. Right.
This is the first draft I made to practice a new style, because I work with a pen and only with line, and for these books, because it's
a pencil.
A pencil.
Yeah,
it's pencil. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I try to use a charcoal aspect to have more a very foggy atmosphere, and to express the a kind of dreamland.
This has a more kind of expressionistic look.
Yes, because it's exactly.
This is in Vienna, isn't it? This is when he goes to Vienna.
Yes, and it's exactly the year of the 21. It's the year of Caligari cabinet.
Caligari, of course. Yes.
So I try to use the smell of the period.
Right.
And if you go on the next slide, okay. So you can see that's exactly my first draft, and how I try to find a very to simplify the aspect of Frink, and in fact I am in between the Tintin, and because my French editor is Casterman, and it's the editor of Hergé, and we use the text of Hergé of Tintin in the book, so it's very obvious when the reader have the text in mind when he reads the book. And I try to have a very soft, very neutral faces, and to have a progression, and to be in the more dramatic part, and it metamorphoses in Munch, the shout.
The screen.
The screen.
Right.
And because I don't want to be too dramatic, I try to be in a very simple 2 point for the eyes, and just
which looks like tinted eyes, doesn't it? He never has.
Yes.
He has those eyes.
And in fact, the other character are more are really important, and there is a kind of mirror effect on it, because in fact my opinion is that Shrink it is completely lost, psychologically lost, and he have no idea who he is, and so the other character are really important. So and you can see the photography with Freud, and in fact the woman is Angelica, the love of Frink, and she is not exactly I don't represent her exactly like this, but I try to have more phantasmatic woman. And if you can,
you're representing her as Horace sees her or imagines her or fantasy.
Yeah, sure.
Here, yeah, she's
if
not. She's more glamorous the way you show her, I think.
Okay, so that's a kind of doodles to fix the two character, and to fix my new tools, and to find the best way.
In a way, Lionel, the way you're drawing Horace, he doesn't look. He never seems to get to that matinee idol, really quite handsome look that he has in the before photograph. He never gets. He always seems to have, basically, even with the dots, some of his childhood, his childlike persona seems to be there all the way through, almost as if psychologically he hasn't really escaped his childhood. He's still a child, but a child of who's obviously got older, because as you explained, that he has a very traumatic childhood, a completely uncaring parents.
No, you're right.
It comes from a really broken family to begin with. Yeah.
Well, I think it's a typical education of the 19th. It's not. It's very usual to be rude with children.
But they weren't regarded in the same way, were they? They weren't. There wasn't that same nurturing, I guess. Yeah.
Next slide, please. Okay. So I use the cigar smoke of Freud to express the transfer theory. I don't know if it's the same word in English, but
the idea of transfer of thoughts, transfer of
yes, and to express all the atmosphere, and because we are in a dream and a nightmare feelings, so it's very interesting to not to be realistic, and I want to push the graphic novel, because I'm not in a realism drawing, and it's not my interest, and I'm not really good like for this. I prefer to push the expressive way.
Well, you're dealing with psychology, so that is obviously opens the door for all kinds of other representation for fantasy and the surreal to come in. And I think the smoke is especially effective as a symbol of the influence of Freud, sometimes spreading like his cigar smoke and affecting people. It's
but because I know I can go very far in a strange way.
Yeah,
I passed a lot of time to have more precise documentation.
Yeah,
I like to be very to draw the architecture and to be very focused on the period. The next slide, please. Okay, so because it's the Casterman, the Belgium editor. I push the Freud in Tintin, the Professor Tournesol. I don't.
Yeah, we call him Professor Calculus in English, but yes, I see what you
yes,
mean. Mad scientist. Look.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to fix the right physical aspect of Freud.
Yeah.
Next slide. That's for Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, because we start with the first travel, and Freud. It's during this period he break with Jung.
Yeah.
And it's a new start of the both in America. And they move in a different way, Freud and Jung, and because nobody knows about the Horace Fring biography, so we start with the most famous part, and to have and there is a lot of very funny and interesting information during this travel. So we start with this part.
I see you've given Jung cat's eyes.
Yeah. The more like I like because he's very young here, and we don't have the. I think the Jung is more knows for the old age aspect, and but I like to work, and because the story is not so funny, I try to have a caricature aspect, and to find a funny part of the to have a contrast in between the different characters, and to be strong and
very graphic on the page. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Next. So you can see the on the left you have the photograph, and that's my first draft on the right. And so I try to fix all the different the audience in the New York City Hall. The Clark University. And the next slide, you can see the final page. And so I try to have all the portrait of the audience, and to have a document on this historical part of the psychoanalysis conference. The next one. Next. So this is I try to fix the Horace Fring father, and I find a French guy, and for me it looks very severe, very dark, and for the grandfather, I find the Lincoln, because it's the father of the nation, and to have the symbol of America.
And so, you put him in the armchair, looking like the Lincoln Memorial.
Yes.
Very, very strong.
Next, please.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a kind of drawing for the woman. You can play the slide. This is for Angelica Bijou, so the lover of Horace Frink, and I try to find the modern the symbol of the modernity, and I use Louise Brooks, the actress of Paps.
Yes.
The next one. So we can see the two wives of Horace Frink. So his first wife on the left, and I choose Liliane Guiche, and modern wife with Louise Brooks. The next one, and for the.
This is a great choice, I think. Yes,
it's the sidekick of Charlot.
What's his name? The actor?
Eric Campbell.
Yeah, he's an amazing face, hasn't he? Really.
Yeah,
yeah. You make him quite devilish looking, don't you? Quite demonic.
Yeah, because we need to because he appears during maybe 5 or 10 pages, so he must be very strong. And okay, the next one.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's my first draft with documents, and after I try to make the right composition in between, the proportion in between text and images. Next one. That's a documentation for the Vienna cabinet of Freud.
Right.
So it's really really important to have the
accuracy.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's an unusual combination. You're walking a tightrope here, because you're having to maintain accuracy. At the same time, you're going to be introducing inaccuracies. You're going to create fantasies. You're modeling characters. You're changing some of the real people and how they look. To make them more psychologically real, perhaps. So it's a very it's a complicated double combination you have to produce here. Very beautifully done. Yeah, tremendous. And if it is the last slide, right? Because I just wanted to, we need to jump to in a moment, but I'd just like to just touch on the fact that what underpins this book, obviously, it's called Frink and Freud. Freud is the second character in the book. Frink is the central character, and he's not known, but his experience going through psychoanalysis is pretty traumatizing, basically. And I don't know whether you and the author Pejou had any. You're not explicit about it, but you're recording actual events and in his life. But then at the same time, you may also be in some ways being critical of what Freud and his psychoanalysis actually produced at this time. How would you comment on that?
I think Freud was a very clever man, and he make he keep some piece of the psychoanalysis cure of the patient, and some details, and who can develop his method. But in fact, there is the literature, the text, and the life of the patient are more dramatic. So, and in fact, the psychoanalysis, it's not it's not a method to be well. It's just, in my opinion, it's a method to know you well, so you can manage with your troubles, and to be more conscious of what you are. But in the case of Horace Frink, the trouble are very deep, and Freud can't help as well during all the cure, during the short part of the cure. Yeah. But in fact, I think it's a story of the interesting period, because it was a very it's more like an adventure.
Yeah.
But it's not really a critique of the psychoanalysis cure, or the
no, it's not. It's not setting out to do that, but it does make you think. It does.
Yeah.
How Horace seems to repeat the problems of his upbringing by being insensitive to his own children, and then his relationships are very complex. And
I think the Frink is completely he can't enjoy the moment. He have always the conscience to have make the wrong choice.
Yeah, the best line he has, I thought, was, "Forgetting is not my strong point."
Yeah, sure.
It's just the perfect line. Yeah. He just couldn't manage it.
Yeah,
brilliant. Well, it's tremendous book, and I think it uses so many of the techniques of comics, as you say. This mixture: is it real? Is it caricatured? It uses it tremendously well, and yeah, it's I recommend it to the audience to discover it. It's really, really tremendous. Congratulations on making it.
Thanks a lot.
And a lovely edition. We were just explaining that the English edition actually has Freud on the cover, but looking out at the viewer, whereas the original Casterman French edition has him looking basically over his shoulder back at Frink, which doesn't work quite as effectively. So we think you preferred the English cover, I think. Yeah. Good. I'll try and bring you back in again at the end for some Q&A, but we want to bring in Jan. Thank you so much for joining us as well, Jan. And we will also have Zatopek, the PDF available, so we can let people see some images, but we don't have a slideshow, but we can let people see what the book is like inside. So Jan, you're a newcomer, I think, to writing. This is your first graphic novel that you wrote, Zatopek. But I was just as a background, were you enthusiastic about comics? Did you read them growing up, or did you discover them perhaps as well when you've been living in America?
Actually, I'm a complete neophyte when it comes to graphics.
I like that. That's good. Yeah, good. Yeah.
The book for this, I read the books. It was very interesting to see the other part of my partner is Yeremia.
Yeah.
Wonderful. One of the best here in Czech Republic. I think the best.
Oh, you mean Yeremia? Yes, the artist Yeremia is excellent, isn't it? Yes. Yeah.
And this book came into being because I was playing defense. I sold a screenplay, and I thought about Zatopek, basically this story that's in the book. And I was worried that the producer wants to steal it. This is a country of no laws. I had a contract, but there's no justice in Eastern Europe. You know, the judges are corrupt and stuff.
Someone was going to make the film without you. Yes.
So I was trying to figure out how I can get it out.
Right.
Just by defending myself. And
Yeah.
it occurred to me that one way might be a comic book. So I asked who the best comic book drawer here is, and I was referred to Yeremia.
Yeah.
I found some money for it because I know the guy who runs the Czech Olympic Committee, and he's trying to always go back to the old Greek Olympic ideal of connecting culture with sports and stuff. So he was interested in supporting the book.
Oh, good. Yeah, yeah.
And I contacted Yeremia, told him that there
So
might be some.
were you aware? Did you obviously looked at Yeremia's work? You were aware of his? He did this. The trilogy. Alois Nabel, was that it? I think.
The story that was made into a movie, which was a wonderful movie.
Animated movie, yeah. So you were aware he's got a big name, yeah.
He liked it, so we went ahead. And basically, it's a screenplay. It's a screenplay dressed in Yeremia's pictures.
Right. And for people that don't know, I mean, Zatopek is, for me, I wasn't really very aware, very vaguely aware of just what an extraordinary achievement, especially in the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki, where he won 3 gold medals in running. Of course, he's a great...
in long distance running, which is a feat.
Long distance, yeah.
And the reason he did it is because right before it, he kind of stood up to the Stalinist government. And I think he was running so fast because he was running for his life. He knew that that's the only way to make himself safe after having declared a private strike against the kind of the situation. There was another, the story of the book is very simple. There was another runner of Olympic potential, future world record holder in 1500 meters, by the name of Jung. And Zatopek wanted him to go to the Olympics with him, but the system said he can't go because his father was at the time in the uranium mines for telling a political joke. So he was a political prisoner, and the son of a political prisoner can't possibly represent Czechoslovakia at the Olympics.
So not a Stalinist, communist Czechoslovakia.
This is 1952. Yes. People are hanging off the gallows here in Prague. You know, it was a very dangerous time, actually. Zatopek said he's not going either if they don't let Jungwirth go as well. Right. He declared a private strike. At first, he was, he refused to go with the Czech Olympic group, didn't fly. Sent his wife, who was a javelin thrower and who won at the Olympics, the javelin, in a surprise performance. And he stayed behind. Eventually, they came, the powers that be let him go with Jungwirth and said that told him as he was leaving, you would be punished in an exemplary fashion for sabotaging the representation of Czechoslovakia abroad for doing this, but you can go. And he ran so fast in all 3 races because he knew the gold medals are the only insurance he can possibly have against this. They
wouldn't stone him if he got the 3 gold medals.
Unnerved by this, and he got knocked out in the semifinals, even though he had the potential to win a gold medal himself. But he was, just so shaken up by this whole thing. So it's a kind of a Western story. It's a man against the system, little guy. It's a great cinematic story.
Yeah, absolutely. A true story too. I mean, we had this opening sequence just then, but he put it through himself through some extraordinary training rigors. I mean, really tough rigors. And then you also can explain perhaps that, he didn't have the healthiest lungs for a runner, did he? He was already that was another factor.
Well, he was a working class boy in these factories by the biggest industrialist in Czech history, Baťa.
Yeah, we had butter shoes here in the UK as well. Yeah, probably everywhere, I expect.
He started out in Czechoslovakia between the wars and basically brought the same automation that Ford used to produce his cars to shoes. And Zatopek was one of 7 kids, next to the youngest kid. With his dad was a table maker. So you know, for the family, it would step up.
This is actually the scene here at home, isn't it? Where the home is the studio, is the work studio.
Yes, they sleep there, and dad worked in the back and stuff. You know, very poor family. And the dad actually was a communist, kind of a Stalin admirer in the 30s. So Zatopek goes up, and for him, it's a kind of a step up to work for Batya. And completely by a lark, he's basically made to run in a race. But he's very competitive, and he decides to go for it. And all of a sudden, he's second in this race around Batya's towns, like Zlin.
Zlin, yes.
And is drawn into athletics at a late age. But there's a guy in Zlin who tells him to change his training method. Until then, the long distance runners were running like, you know, full out for 2,000 meters, and then they dressed and run another 2,000 meters. And this guy had the idea, now it's called the interval training. Everybody does it. Rather than running 2,000 meters, if you run 10 times 200 meters full out with just walking intervals in between, you will build yourself up a lot more. And Zatopek was the first one to basically use this method. When he started being successful with it, people started copying it. By the time he finished running, everybody was using this method. So he changed the long distance running.
Ah, interesting. Because that's the point, is that if you're doing this enormous exertion at the beginning, then those people would tend to flag, and they don't have the energy to keep that pace up. So, and in one scene, I know you show where he's calculated that the speed he needs to take each lap so that he can win. He keeps at the way through. Yeah.
He was really interesting. He was very iconoclastic.
Yeah.
Experimented with different things. He would stuff himself, have a big lunch, and then go train, see what happens. You know, he had some really funny ideas, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. But he kept experimenting, and you know, and was able to adjust, grab whatever worked. So
and how do you think he survived with even though he had these damaged, these unhealthy lungs, not helped by the work experience we're seeing here in the factory, the shoe factory in Zlin, the Bata, where he was breathing in lots of bad things for his lungs? How do you think he managed it? It makes no sense that a champion would have these. I
think actually he didn't have a dent. His lungs were so strong that they survived.
Even with that. Yes, even with that.
To silicone in this factory. He was only there for probably half a year. But,
okay, right. Right. And I'm just interested in because we're looking also, of course, at the graphics here, and Yeremir's style is very kind of almost looks like a wood block print, doesn't it? Like a wood carving. It's very angular and dramatic. And I also wondered about the color palette. The fact that you have quite a limited palette. You have basically red, green, and black. I think maybe cream, but it's a very. Was that something that you discussed, that Yeremia proposed to you? How you were going the graphic design of the book?
No, it's completely Yeremia's choice, which I respected and loved.
Yes, yes.
I've learned, you know, because I've written screenplays that were produced, and I know that you really don't have a chance to. You just have to trust the person that does the rest of it, does the visual stuff.
I guess you knew what you were getting from Yeremia, yeah, and it has a kind of almost a propaganda poster style to it in a way.
We try to change his style in every book. We just finished our third book, Časlavská, and it's always a different look. And he was actually trying to be, or he was looking for inspiration in the posters of the 50s.
That's what I thought it was. Yeah, yeah.
Period full of pathos, you know, and full of kind of oversized gestures.
Yes, yes, it has a kind of heroic, obviously dramatic style to it. And he very cleverly contrasts panels with full pages. And I mean, the composition of the graphic novel is very, very striking. It's brilliant.
It,
I think sorry.
That was my class in comics. You know, just the dramaturgy of images is
how
really,
was it for you then? Yeah, I mean, what's your take now, coming from the word just words, and seeing obviously and film, obviously film and picture. So you have that background and training. But what's your feeling about what comics do as a medium? I know you've done more. You're doing more. Are you excited by it? Do you see it as a...
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It is. It's not that different from the movies, except you can do it in two people, or you know, one person can do it when he draws. So you have a lot more control. You don't have actresses that you have to humor, and you know, so in that sense. But it's very much like, unlike prose writing, which to me, when I write prose, I'm sort of a medium. I'm just barely able to transcribe. When it's going good, I'm just barely able to transcribe the stream of thoughts, you know, and I don't know really where it's coming from.
Mm.
When you write a screenplay or when you write a libretto for a comic book, it's much more, you do much more of the writing in a shower or somewhere else, because you're basically trying to surprise the audience. You're trying to, it's much more of a combination of factors. It's much more of a conscious activity than it is when you're writing pure prose.
And when you were writing with Yeremia, I'm just wondering how the process worked, because you would be writing, but then also Yeremia would be visualizing for you. So was a lot of to and fro? Would Yeremia send you, here's how I'm doing this, here's how, would you just...
When he wanted to cut 20 pages when he was at one point, because he was just worn out. And then he decided to keep it in there. No, but you know, I give him visual materials that I have.
Reference materials, of course. I recognize some of the famous
that I collect as I go through this.
So like Lionel, you've got photo reference for Zatopek and some of these kinds of things, and the location.
Yeah. Zatopek is kind of a, you know, there are many photographs of Zatopek.
Yeah.
He's one of the most photographed athletes in Czechoslovakia's history.
Yeah.
So, but the other images, you know, images from the camps where his coach ends up in the labor camps. He's actually tortured in '52, and those images where the communists were hiding, they're not very easy to find. You know, you kind of have to go into some archives and stuff. So I was that was important with the other book.
Yes, maybe we could bring that one in now, because Loic, you could bring up the other PDF, which is, so let me ask you, why is the book, because this is taken from a novel. This is a novel called So Far, So Good. What does that title refer to? Why did you call that?
It's really a true novel.
Yes. Again, based on the graphic biography, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm hearing from somebody else, but it's a real story from the 50s, which I kind of recreate, not in a historical fashion, but in a novelistic fashion, to make the time come alive. It's a story of two brothers who ran a resistance cell in the 50s and wound up running for their lives towards Berlin, and they killed policemen along the way. It's a real kind of a dark Cold War story. I know the brothers. I knew the brothers.
Oh, you did? Yes, because one of them is still alive, or is that not the case?
The younger one is still alive. The older one was in a uranium mines and died of Hodgkin's disease, I think, because of the irradiation in the mines.
Yeah.
And so when I wrote the book originally, I had to kind of recreate what they've already lost themselves. You know, they ran for the duration of the month of October 1953 through East Germany towards Berlin. There were 5 guys running. 2 got caught along the way and hung in Prague in 1955, and 3 made it into West Berlin. 2 brothers unscathed, and another guy who had a stomach hole in his stomach that they dragged across. And so toward the end of their escape, they were traumatized and they didn't really remember chunks of it. So if you want to make it present again, you have to use literary means. You have to kind of put yourself in that situation and draw on your own experiences to kind of recreate it, to pass it on to a reader. So that's what I did. And the scripts and the book is very different from the comic book, because screenplay is a different animal, as I said, from a novel. You don't have as much time. You don't have, and it's set up completely differently. I start in the middle of the middle, kind of. They've just been arrested, both brothers.
Arrested, aren't they? Yeah,
by the STB, and one of them goes through interrogations.
Right. So they have that device where he's writing his kind of history or confession.
He's asked to write his biography, which he's writing, obviously in a sanitized version, and you always see the reality behind the sanitized version that he's presenting to the investigators.
Yeah, that's the device you used then in the novel, but not right at the beginning.
No,
you had
I'm using that in the comic book. I don't use it in the novel.
So that's quite an interesting thing to do, isn't it? Because the reader can see and read two different things.
Because you have the visual, you can go against the text with the visuals.
Yes.
And that creates an interesting tension and dynamic.
Absolutely.
You don't have that when you're writing a novel.
No, I don't know how you would do that, really. Exactly. So that is one of the special qualities of comics, I think, definitely.
Yeah.
Now these two brothers, they are somewhat controversial, though, aren't they? I believe in the Czech Republic now. I mean, they have been. We know Zatopek is obviously a huge hero, but how are these two brothers, Radek and Pepper, as you said, is their familiar names? Machine, I think, is their surname.
Yes.
Yeah. How are they viewed? Are they considered heroes?
This is a country of gray. Zatopek has a very problematic part of life that in the 70s, when after the Russian invasion, he was kind of helped out by he was helping the regime, which had just removed Dubček and stuff. So he's got a kind of a checkered past in the year subsequent to my book.
Right. So you chose not to cover the more gray area later life. You chose not to do that.
Yeah, the book is not a biography. It's a story.
Sorry?
From Zatopek's life, dramatic story out of Zatopek's life. It's that kind of a Western,
Right.
And I ended at a high point when he's kissing his wife, who had just won a gold medal as well.
Yeah.
I think the marathon and stuff. Right. It's kind of a real cinematic, story. Kind of American movie.
A feel-good movie, yes.
A feel-good movie. And this other story is very different. It's a dark story. And the brothers are every year there's but they're usually nominated for President's Awards at the end of the year and never get it. So they are controversial. They, as a part of their underground activities in the 50s, they hit 2 police stations trying to get weapons and killed 2 cops, and then they killed another guy in the process of this. So some people here think that nobody should kill anybody under any conditions.
No, exactly. They did take lives in the process, right. But of
well,
course,
but at the same time, families were life, right, and left it. This was in the early 50s when.
Just a minute, we can't hear you so well now, Jan. Did you move the microphone or something? Oh, there we go. That's better. Sorry,
300 people were hung here.
Yes.
A lot of political prisoners. There were huge labor camps,
Yeah.
So, and the machines were not the only ones who were fighting back with weapons. There's another 300 members of the regime, party members, border guards, prison guards who were killed by the underground. So it was the Cold War wasn't all that cold here.
No. And it went for a long time. What impressed me about what's happening, we need to wrap up, I think, when we'll see some Q&A, but I'm sure you're aware there's a very impressive anthology published called The War Is Not Over, I think it was the title, produced by Postbellum. And in Czechia or Czech Republic, there's been a real use of comics to deal with serious issues of history, of accountability, and people are actually giving their testimonies of what they did, sometimes not exactly complex things, moral crises and dilemmas and things they dealt with, and they're being adapted, some of them, into graphic novels. And there is an attempt to say, we must look at this, we must address this, and this is surely a good thing. We have to look back and try and understand what was going on then. Yeah,
it's a wonderful didactic tool. It's making
yeah, tremendous. Well, I think we are running out of time a little bit here, but so I want to check if we've got any questions from the viewing audience, or from I haven't even said hello properly to the live audience who are there in the Institut Français. So if we have no questions, I will just carry on to wrap up a little bit. But let me just bring you both back into the discussion here. And I'm sorry we couldn't have had slightly more between the two of you as well. But I think what's interesting to talk about is, just now in conclusion, what the graphic novel can do. I'm wondering whether you've had any feedback on your work. Perhaps Lionel, you'd like to come in here. What reaction has there been to your book? Has it been well reviewed? Has it stirred any discussion amongst the public, or perhaps amongst the field of Freud experts?
I think many people have some interest for psychoanalysis, and in fact, during there is a TV series in French who have a lot of success, who call In Therapy. And so I think the graphic novel have a good access to have a knowledge, and I think it's also an adventure, and it's very so I have a lot of good vibes after the reading book, and it's very very stimulated. And
good.
And it's a very adult readers, and you can so it's really interesting, and I really appreciate to work with Pierre Péju, and to have this very particular experience to have the novel and the graphic novel. So it's very interesting to
that's a very unusual approach. And for you, Jan, what reaction has there been to your to both Zatopek and to So Far So Good in graphic novel form? Have you been getting good feedback? Is there we know France has a very big readership for comics. Is that readership growing in the Czech Republic, in Czechia?
Yeah, it is. It is. And we've had some really wonderful reviews. The book sold, I think, over, 15, 17,000 book copies, which is huge for this market.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. If a comic book has 1,000 copies here, it's a success.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And the Machine story, I think we're pushing 10,000 too. So I think last year we were with Zatopek 4 years after it was published. It was still the number four on the sellers list for the country. So, and it's very unusual that a book comes out in all these different linguistic mutations, because it was published in German, French, Spanish, Portuguese, went out in Italian, in English.
This is what can obviously can happen with novels, but it happens with graphic novels surprisingly, because there is a whole network of publishers ready to do these things, and this is the time of the graphic novel. It seems to me, it really is. So let me just wrap up by asking each of you. I'll go back to Lionel. Just what are you working on now and next? Are you doing a new graphic novel? I know you're doing one, Jan. We'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah, I work on
What's it about?
more shorter story for a child book, a comic book, but for children.
Right.
And it's because I like very much the gothic atmosphere or Victorian stories. So it's a vampire story with a boy who are completely afraid and live in a closed manner, and he is in contact with modernity. So it's a way to he passed into light into darkness. So it's and it's really it's very very clever style for the text. I work with it's very very interesting.
Are you working with a writer, with a scenarist?
Yes.
Okay. And you're doing this one in color?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I like to change to move in different ways.
Yeah.
So,
very good. And yeah, just to wrap up, what you've told us you're working on a third book now with Yeremia.
It's actually finished here. It's called Chas. It's a story of it.
You're a machine. You're like Zatopek. You're a marathon novel maker. So
Zatopek was published 4 or 5 years ago. It's
yes,
just taken that for the English version to come out.
So what's this one about?
This one is it's a story of it's kind of a Greek tragedy, actually. It's a story of the most storied athlete here in Czechoslovakia. She's the holder of 7 gold medals from 2 Olympics, 1964 and 1968. In 68, it was right after the Russian invasion here. And her husband was also an Olympic runner. And at one point, her son was sentenced for manslaughter for killing his father, her husband. It's an incredible story.
Gosh. And, can you hold up the cover?
Because Yeremia decided to use all the Olympic colors.
Very good, very graphic, wonderful. Yeah, and some good panel layouts there too. Excellent. Well, let's hope that also comes into English, so we can catch up with that one in the future. But I'd like to thank you both. I think we have to wrap up now, and thank you so much, Lionel Richerand and Jan Novák, for being such interesting speakers and telling us about your biographics, which I think is quite a good term. It's it's like biopics. We have biopics in movies. Why shouldn't we have biographics in comics? And best of luck to you for your future projects. And let me thoroughly encourage the audience and listeners here to check out these remarkable graphic novels. They're really worth getting. So both Frink and Freud and Zatopek are available from Self-Made Hero, and So Far So Good is available in English from Centrala, and they're in bookshops or online now. Thank you very much. I think I hand over. I have an announcement to make. Sorry. Yes, I have to write this down. Just a minute. Where is it? Oh, it's here. Here we are. Okay, so today, it's like running a TV station, isn't it? Really doing these things with one person, no, 2 people. Loic's helping me here. Today at 6 p.m., a conversation entitled New Noir Novels. This is the next event coming up in the Beyond Words Festival going on this weekend at the Institut Fosse in London. Writers Joseph Knox and Olivier Norek, authors of the bestsellers Sirens and The Lost and the Damned, will be in a discussion shared by Ayo Otanade, telling us what makes the noir genre so riveting and what its resurgence tells us about our current era. The discussions will be interspersed with readings by David Milden. So that's coming up at 6 o'clock in about 3/4 of an hour. In the meantime, thank you very much to Jan and to Lionel. And I'm Paul. I'm in London. Thank you very much for a fascinating discussion.
Thank you too.
Thank you.